Summer means a lot of things. It means a bunch of mosquitoes. It means a bunch of heat. It means cooling off at the ocean with your friends and family. But one thing that I always associate with summer, or that I used to associate with summer, is Electronic Entertainment Expo, the big triple E, or just better known by the entire world as E3. If you were in school, which I imagine a lot of us were, the day that school let out for summer was usually around the same time that E3 began, at least where I was growing up. As schools closed their doors for the last time, E3 opened theirs for the first. Watching the big three gaming titans, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, go all out for this once-a-year event was genuinely something to look forward to every year. I never got to attend E3 in person, and I never will since the shutdown in 2021, and while I would have loved to at least experience that at least once, I've also heard some pretty messed up things about E3. That's not the kind of reputation I would have wanted E3 to end on, but in its wake, Jeff Keighley was quick to launch Summer Games Fest. Well, actually, Summer Games Fest was a thing in 2020 to sort of connect gamers with the power of the internet without the need for a sweaty venue, but when E3 went out the door the following year, Summer Games Fest was perfectly fit to fill in that vacuum that E3 left behind, especially since the lockdown hadn't been completely lifted yet. The whole premise of Summer Games Fest was Jeff Keighley saying, "We have E3 at home," and this year, I'm taking that literally and bringing E3 to my desk. I set aside a chunk of time purely for gaming, and I forced myself to play new titles, new experiences that I could look back on that would mark the summer of 2025. And the very first thing that caught my eye this summer wasn't even a full game. It was a demo for an anticipated title called Dead as Disco. This demo dropped as a part of Steam Next Fest, an event dedicated to showcasing upcoming and anticipated games, and boy, this game made me put the controller down and bust out all the Michael Jackson moves. It might look like a regular beat 'em up, but the game syncs every hit, every dodge, every knockout to the beat of the music. It's the satisfying dance to the death. The demo features a fragment of a level, as well as some concept art and trailers from the full release. But that's standard demo practice. It's meant to generate excitement for the full release by showing what's in store for the future. What really impressed me about this demo was the free dance mode featuring a whole boatload of songs to choose from. Even just playing through all the available songs will take a couple hours of your time, especially if you're aiming for a personal best by rerunning songs with improved speed and efficiency. Having this in a demo on its own is already great, but what impressed me even further was the fact that you can upload your own songs. This opens up an infinite amount of replayability, and with the option to tweak the BPM and customize your uploaded song to your liking, Dead as Disco essentially becomes a super novel music player. The fact that they have this in a demo is criminal. You don't even have to pay for the full game to get access to what I believe to be a game-defining feature, but the developers making this free really goes to show the faith that they have in their game. They know that they've struck a golden formula, and they know that this feature is so unique that putting it in the demo will generate the most amount of excitement for the full release. If you've really been jamming out to a song that's been stuck in your head on repeats, instead of just humming it, you can download this demo right now and upload that song to get the most out of your obsession and really scratch that itch. Or you could be like me and immediately upload May's theme from Guilty Gear Strive without a moment's hesitation. The game is oozing with charm. The music is catchy. The combat feels satisfying. This is an immediate day one purchase for me. Another game that I purchased recently that felt basically free because it cost less than a bag of chips is Buckshot Roulette. I didn't know and still don't know anything about this game's history. I've been told it made the rounds on YouTube and social media in 2023 like Lethal Company or Repo, just to name a few recent examples. But the reason why I'm playing this game now is because this was one of the easiest trust me bro purchases I've ever made. In fact, it was such an easy commitment that I didn't even originally buy the game. It was gifted to me by a friend and I was having quite a bit of fun with it, so I paid it forward and brought it for another friend. The concept of Buckshot Roulette is right there in the name. It's essentially Russian roulette, but with a shotgun in place of a revolver, and you don't just aim at yourself, you also aim at your opponents. You have a couple of chances, so it's not instant death either, but the game basically boils down to remembering how many live rounds and how many fake rounds are in the shotgun, and strategically emptying the chamber so that you deal as much damage as possible while suffering the least amount of damage to yourself. There's a single player campaign, but it's super short. I'm talking like 10 to 15 minutes max, and then there's sort of an endless mode as well, so you can squeeze squeeze out more playtime there, but the real fun is in the multiplayer. Each time you empty the chamber, you get a random assortment of items which helps you figure out the order of the rounds and also allows you to sabotage your enemies. You can play a majority of the game in certainty if you do the math right, but nothing tops those moments of statistical uncertainty where you have no chance but to just take the shots.
2 blue, 1 red.
Look at the odds. Yeah.
Oh my god.
There might be 3 fakes in the chamber and 1 live round left, and you have no items left to help you, so you just gotta hold your breath and go for it. Buckshot Roulette doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a fun and simple time with easy to understand mechanics. I also heard there's a Roblox version of this game, and that it, funnily enough, sometimes runs better than the official version, and I totally believe it too. I used to teach Roblox Studio courses professionally, so I'm familiar with the engine, and also because we personally had moments where the game would very occasionally bug out and hang. Anyway, watch this. There is no way that this is a live run. Mini Metro is a decade-old game that I only just now discovered, and with reviews like these and a price like this, it was a no-brainer for a train enthusiast such as myself. I made a whole video on trains and video games. I might have a bit of a problem. The catchphrase for Mini Metro is "build a better subway," which I feel is completely wrong because my subways are straight up abominations to the naked human eye, and yet they work. What initially drew me to this game was the simplicity. There are a lot of city builder and city management games out there, some of them rated really highly, and a big portion of these games are about building public infrastructure. I want the train building aspect of these games separate from all the city management and realism, and Mini Metro provides exactly that. This is the perfect cross between a puzzle game and a train building simulator. The objective of the game is to deliver passengers from one shape to another, and there are a lot of shapes in this game, so the strategy comes from making train lines that overlap smartly and don't repeat too many of the same shapes. Having solid line hygiene is fundamental to making sure that passengers can get to their desired destinations without overcrowding. Of course, it's easier said than done, and Mini Metro can provide a serious challenge. There are a bunch of different maps to choose from, like London, the original train system, or Budapest, the second commercial train system. You've got Tokyo, which lets you build the Shinkansen in addition to regular train lines. Each of these cities have their own challenges, and they can be as simple as not using more than 2 tunnels or making sure all train lines connect to the same station. But other times, they can be batshit insane, like Berlin limiting you to 1 train cart per line. Do not attempt Berlin if you're playing this game in order of city like I was and doing all the challenges along the way. Just play it to unlock the next city and come back to it later. This achievement took me like half a day to figure out. I give up. I give up. I give up. I give up. Bro, this is the I give up? It's impossible. Other than the puzzle aspect, I really do like how the shapes correlate to the actual real-life train lines in these cities. Squares are super rare and spawn in what is usually the downtown equivalent for the city, the area that gets the most foot traffic, while circles and triangles denote suburbs. When a cluster of circles start to appear on the edge of the map, that's when the game really kicks off, because now you've got to figure out how to efficiently get passengers from the suburbs to the city center, all while remembering that there are special shapes like stars and pentagons that denote unique destinations. I loved looking at the real image of the subway that I was building and then trying to replicate that in-game, although you do kind of have to sacrifice some authenticity purely for the puzzle aspect, which is fine. The procedural generation of the shapes keeps each run interesting. It would have been like a stale bag of chips otherwise. Fun at first, but not very exciting to return to. Mini Metro was like a 3-day obsession. This game literally found its way into my dreams. I was constructing train lines even in my sleep. The developers behind this game, Dinosaur Polo Club, which I didn't make up by the way, earned my loyalty, and I even bought what I personally consider to be the follow-up project, Mini Motorways. I haven't played it yet, but putting the two side by side, Mini Motorways looks like the proper evolution for this genre. I'll definitely be checking out the sequel right after I get done building the Yamanote line for the 1000th time in Tokyo. Can you tell I got my love of trains from Japan? I'm like that one Japanese guy who sees the Shinkansen pass by at Mach speed and his face is just full of happiness. Mini Metro is chill because it's a puzzle game that gets your brain working without needing to stress out your muscles like a FromSoft game would rather have you do, but the actual chillest game I played this summer needs no introduction. It's none other than Stardew Valley. I happened upon this headline that said that Stardew Valley had toppled Portal 2's 14-year-long streak of being the highest rated Steam game. I knew of the success of Stardew Valley and the heart of gold that the developer has put on display multiple times, and there was actually a point in time where I recalled my younger brother playing Stardew Valley, so I asked him about it and he said this. So yeah, I take my younger brother's words like they're my own, and so I impulsively bought Stardew Valley, even convincing my cousins to do the same so that we can start a village together. And the results were us scrambling to figure out who could attempt to marry Abigail first. Turns out that when you put a bunch of people who have no clue what they're doing into the same server, it actually ends up being really fun.
What the hell?
Wait,
What the hell?
Mark, go to silence. Silent.
It's me.
Silent got us a cutscene. Okay.
I would equate my first time Stardew Valley experience to the first time I went camping with my best friends. We did like little to no research, just bought what we thought we needed, and then scrambled to figure things out from there. The game does a great job of leading you in the right direction by giving the player these morning mails that point towards an objective, but don't force you to go there. This is your farm. You and your friends are an inhabitant of this town, and there's no pressure at all from a gameplay perspective to rush into anything. You do you sums up Stardew Valley pretty well in my opinion. I played for about 2 hours, which is just barely scratching the surface of this game, and in that time, I reached farming level 1, and it felt great. I was learning how to craft, figuring out where I wanted my farm to be placed. I wanted to get to know where each of the townspeople lived and submerge myself into the sapling of a story that I just know is destined to grow into a massive bean sprout. This is the ultimate kickback and relax game. I might just double dip for this thing on the Nintendo Switch or finally buckle and buy a Steam Deck because I can already imagine the vibe Stardew Valley would bring playing it in my comfy bed. I'm kind of preaching to the choir here since, I mean, just look at this active player base and review count. Stardew Valley is up there for one of the best games ever made, no question, and it came out in 2016, so I am unimaginably late to the party. But if a party has been going on strong for this long, then there's something truly magical happening here, and I'm just happy to finally be a part of it. Early this summer, we got the Nintendo Switch 2, and it quite notably lacked a lot of launch titles. We had Mario Kart World, but people still debate about whether that on its own was the killer app that justified buying a Switch 2. For me, the reason why I went out and bought a Switch 2 was for the promise of free and paid software updates to a bunch of Nintendo's older games. In 2017, the original Switch launched with its famous system seller, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, this video isn't about me comparing Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart World as launch titles and trying to see which one did it better. I honestly couldn't care less if you bought the original Switch for snipper clippers or the 3DS for Steel Diver. What you do with your money is not of my concern. But at least statistically speaking, the majority of early Switch buyers bought Breath of the Wild to go alongside their brand new system, and I was one of those early adopters. But you know what? Despite being there day one, I never actually finished Breath of the Wild. 2 years from now, Breath of the Wild will be a decade old, and yet I had these bursts where I would play the game for weeks at a time, then put it down for months before coming back to it. But my save file would always feel so foreign to me upon my return that I would just start a new playthrough, promising myself on each iteration that that new save file would be the one where I actually finish the game, but I could never live up to my promise. As I return to Breath of the Wild once more in the year 2025, what makes it different this time? How can I prove that I'll actually stick to my word? The fact that the game now looks better and runs better on the Switch 2 is not the real reason behind why I've returned to this game. Now, I would be lying if I didn't admit that it made it easier for me to come back and reattempt to fix this broken promise, but it doesn't capture the full picture. Understanding why I had this sort of an on and off relationship with the game in the first place is key to ensuring that I'll see it through to the end this time around, and I think I finally got it figured out. It boils down to a bad case of gaming paralysis. In one of my scrapped videos that unfortunately never made it onto my channel, I wrote a line where I said that Breath of the Wild encourages the player to play incorrectly to the point where you forget what the correct way to play even is. This level of freedom can cause certain types of players to become overwhelmed, and I am susceptible to this. I grew up with Professor Rowan teaching me to fill out the Pokédex, a clear-cut goal, something I could clearly map out and chart a path towards. In Breath of the Wild, you always have this core objective looming over your main objectives, and the game tells you to free the 4 divine beasts to confront Ganon, but even this is just a suggestion. You could storm Hyrule Castle without any of the divine beasts and the game would not punish you, which is the complete opposite of static NPC who block your progression in Pokemon. What really used to get to me wasn't necessarily the objectives themselves, but it was the total and utter freedom in which you could accomplish them. And I think I'm finally ready to confront this rigid part of myself and learn to just let go and go with the flow. I not only intend to see this through to the end, but I also want to document how it feels to actively push against your natural instincts. And at the end of the day, I'm not doing this for anybody besides myself, but my experience could always end up on this channel someday, you know? So Who knows? It's also a nice bonus that I get to do all this in buttery smooth 60 FPS, but this update did cost me $10. However, there's a game on the Switch that received a free performance update, and I mean thank it was free because I would have crashed out if Pokemon Scarlet and Violet charged for a performance boost after the unacceptable state that the game's been in since its release in 2022. Unlike Breath of the Wild, I purely returned to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet for the performance boost. It was the driving factor for me dropping this game pretty early on in its lifespan, which was a real shame because underneath the performance and the bugs, I truly believe that the 9th generation of Pokemon has one of the best formulas in any of the mainline games. Sure, the game looks like this, and that kind of sucks, especially right after I got talking about Breath of the Wild, which looks like this. But nonetheless, this is one of the first Pokemon games where the phrase "gotta catch them all" takes on a whole different meaning. For one, you technically can't catch them all since the game is still missing around 200 Pokemon, but from the pool that is available, the catching experience is masterclass. Pokemon fully roam the open world, and you no longer have to run through tall grass to get them to spawn, unlike the hybrid approach that Sword and Shield had. One of the best features of Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver returns here because your partner Pokemon can run alongside you, and they even defeat wild Pokemon quickly without needing to engage in battle with each and every one of them individually. From a gameplay perspective, the Paldea region is smooth, and now we have the performance to match that. So the whole package has a nice little ribbon on top, but only a small ribbon though. It is for sure lacking in the scenographic department, and I personally mourn the death of locking eyes with the trainer to battle them. This part of Pokemon took a massive blow, but at least the game is becoming really competitive friendly, and the introduction of terrestrialization makes battles the most lucrative that they've ever been. So while the average campaign is kind of a cakewalk, it's the online battle experience after the fact that really makes up for it. Kids these days don't know the horrors of Ultra Necrozma, man, and this game came out in 2017. You feel old yet? Okay, so this next game might get a lot of eyes since the CEO keeps intentionally rage baiting fans with some pretty outlandish claims for the next installment in the series, but I want you guys to understand that the reason I played Borderlands 2 for the first time was because one of my best friends considers this his favorite game of all time. So of course I was gonna play it with him. That's what friends are for. On top of this, I used to play an insane amount of Destiny and Destiny 2 back in the day, and you know, back then people would refer to Borderlands as the original looter shooter, a type of genre where you loot and shoot, then rinse and repeat. So I've always been naturally curious to try this series out. It's a bit unfortunate that Gearbox is kind of digging their own grave and bringing this franchise down with them. Like, the whole retroactive EULA change to the entire Borderlands series doesn't really reflect the quality of the game, but players did their part and review bombed the series on Steam. Changing the EULA agreement decades after launch or making a player forcefully agree to destroy their copy of the game once servers go offline or whenever their company deems that it's time will never be acceptable. So I'm really proud that gamers are voicing their opinions. Putting all the corporate mismanagement to the side, there is a legacy game to be enjoyed here. I absorbed a lot of Borderlands just by being associated to Destiny, and it turns out that what I always heard about there being an insanely wide variety of guns to choose from is, in fact, very true. The amount of choices can be overwhelming, but it's really fun to toss a gun to the side and try out a new one for some period of time, and then basically always cycle out your inventory. It's definitely reminiscent of the Destiny campaign where you would keep changing out weapons for higher rarity ones that increased your overall light level. My god though, there is a lot of dialogue in this game. It felt like someone was always talking in my ear, and when you mix in reading objectives or abilities, it can be a lot to process.
Now you gotta save him. Deshaun.
Get me out of here. Oh, please, take your time. Can't help but notice you're not getting me out of here. Maybe you're thinking, oh,
Bro, can you shut up?
thanks, friend of friends.
Oh my god.
I could already feel that the real grind to Borderlands 2, where the game truly shines, is way in the post-game, where you party up with friends to attempt difficult missions over and over again to reap random rewards. And I knew this not because I was told, but because this was my Destiny experience. I was actually pretty shy when I was younger, so I didn't participate in raids too much, but when I was put into a party because my friends insisted that they needed one more, it was an absolute blast learning how the raid worked, coordinating with your team about who would fill what role, and then celebrating in unison when all went to plan. Ultimately, Borderlands raids are different from what Destiny offers, so it's not in good faith to make one-for-one comparisons, but the point I want to be making is that playing Borderlands 2 was like returning to the fall of 2014 with the initial release of Destiny. The character creator gave me that exact same feeling as picking between a hunter, titan, or warlock again, and being showered in loot in Borderlands 2 was the exact same dopamine that kept me hooked to Destiny for years. I've since detached myself from this kind of gameplay loop, and Destiny isn't what it used to be anyway, so it's not just me who moved on. I grew out of of it just as Bungie decided to follow a different monetization model. I don't have this itch to return nor to look for a substitute because the game I played over a decade ago simply doesn't exist anymore. I mean, not literally, Destiny servers are still up and I could queue into a game at any time, but it's not really about returning to the game for the sake of playing it again. It's more like returning to the friends we made along the way, which isn't possible anymore. People grow up and they move on. If we're talking about moving on from things in life, then I can't think of a better segue than this one. I'd originally saved this game for the end of the video, but I got this sudden feeling that I had to talk about it now or risk losing that spark entirely. Also, there'll be no spoilers here, I promise you. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 brought France onto the world stage in a way nobody could have predicted. Multiple media outlets are calling this game of the year already, and everybody I've spoken with has been begging me to play. Begging is honestly selling it short. I've been nagged about playing Clair Obscur unlike any other game in recent memory. There is such a thing as overhyping a product, so for a while, I kinda just left Clair Obscur alone. The game wasn't gonna go anywhere, and since I'd missed the introductory offer which gave 10% off, I might as well just wait for the next time that it went on sale, which just so happened to be recently. My friends asked me to stream the first hour of the game to them, and this is standard practice between us. We love watching each other play games. It's like the closest thing to couch gaming when everyone lives so far away from one another, so I thought nothing of it. Little did I know that I had just fallen for a massive trap. I was tricked, there's no other way to put it. No other game in recent memory has made me swell up with uncontrollable emotion to this extent within the very first hour. After witnessing a specific cutscene, I couldn't bring myself to continue playing, especially not in the presence of anybody else, because I realized then that this was one of those kinds of hibernation games where you carve out your schedule just to play this, and you disassociate from everything else until you've had your fix. I'm purposefully keeping the footage limited to not even the first hour, but even less than that, because I want this video to be kept as spoiler-free as possible. The setup to the story, the characters, the music, this is a once-in-a-lifetime kind of package, made even more impressive by the fact that this was the studio's debut title. They have nothing else on their record. If not Game of the Year, Clair Obscur is at least poised to win Best Debut Game. I can almost certainly feel it. Also, here's a little fun fact I discovered. The music composer, Lorien Testad, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, was discovered by the developers on SoundCloud. They thought his stuff sounded really nice, so they brought him onto the project despite never having composed for a video game before. And the end result is an 8-hour soundtrack featuring 154 songs. To put this into perspective, Final Fantasy VII Remake also features an 8-hour album with 156 songs, not including the interlude tracks that were added later. But the difference is that there are multiple composers who contributed to that album. Clair Obscur though, all of the tracks were composed solely by Testad. Also, on the topic of the Final Fantasy comparison, Clair Obscur's combat is like an evolution of the ATB system from older Final Fantasy titles. The game is turn-based, yes, but it also requires you to pay attention to enemy attack patterns and to be vigilant 24/7. You're not inputting a move like you would Pokemon and just watching as the scenario plays out. You've got to be reactive to the enemies. It's a great system that I only wish Square Enix would have landed upon sooner, but I'm also not upset that Sandfall Interactive were the ones to figure it out. Ever since I experienced that single hour of Clair Obscur, it's always been looming in my mind, and while my brain is telling me to continue playing it already, my heart keeps telling me to wait for that perfect moment to really digest all that this game has to offer. I know a once-in-a-lifetime experience when I see one, and I want to play Clair Obscur for myself, not because other people are telling me to do so. The last game I have for you guys today is one that I've been looking forward to since the leak of its existence in the fall of 2024. It's kind of wild how Atlus leaks their own games in newer and funnier ways each time, but it works in the player's favor, so you won't see me complaining about it. Raidou Remastered is everything but a remaster. This is a full-on remake of the original 2006 PlayStation 2 classic by the same name. If you look at a side-by-side comparison, they really went all out for this thing. It's not just a visual overhaul, the battles have been revamped to be much smoother and a lot more fun. It was priced quite fairly, and even if it did have the obligatory day one Atlus and Sega DLC tax, this is the kind of project that I can get behind. I would buy multiple copies of this game if I could to show Atlus that more of this is exactly what we need. The Etrian Odyssey HD collection provided a cool template for how they could possibly port Shin Megami Tensei 4 and 4 Apocalypse to modern day systems, alongside Atlus's huge 3DS era catalog. The existence of Raidou Remastered, which isn't even a turn-based RPG, this is one of the rare few action RPGs, hopefully indicates that Atlus is entertaining the idea of reviving a lot of their older games. And if those remasters have anywhere near the level of quality that they put into Raidou Remastered, then we could be looking at a more diverse Atlus ecosystem, because I don't know about you guys, but Persona fatigue is real, man. Maybe not so much for people who got into the franchise post Persona 5 or post Persona 4 Golden on Steam, but for me personally, I was really excited when I heard Soul Hackers was randomly coming back, even though it didn't really end up being what I expected, and the Etrian Odyssey HD collection was a fun experiment to see how DS games can translate to modern day systems. Hell, even Tokyo Mirage Sessions is an unassuming hit from Atlus, if you can forgive the game for not being what it was originally advertised to be, which is a cross between Shin Megami Tensei and Fire Emblem. I know we got robbed, but trust me, the idle game is not that bad. I don't even have to mention Metaphor ReFantasio. That was a breath of fresh air that gave us a familiar feeling game in an unfamiliar setting and tone. To loop this whole thing back around, the significance of Raidou cannot be overlooked. In one of Atlus's publisher's voice videos, the game's director Kazuyuki Yamai basically said, "Please buy this game so I can prove to Atlus that people are interested in this kind of stuff." Enough support could even lead to a brand new entry in the Raidou series. Who's to really say? These are the games that I played this summer, but let me know in the comments what hooked you the most this year. I do read every comment, so please, don't be shy. We're all just a couple of gamers after all. As for everyone who maybe didn't play as many games this summer, I feel you. That's exactly why I made this video. The summer sales are mostly behind us, but if you picked up anything, don't procrastinate it like I did every year before this. Give it a shot. You don't know what kind of adventures are waiting for you unless you take that initial step. And to those who might have missed the sales, give the backlog a quick brush. Start by selecting just one game that you've been eyeing lately, and don't think about anything else. Just play it. You'll thank yourself later, I promise you. Anyway, that's all I've got for you guys this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.